Diets fail to serve many women because they are a one-pillar module. And if you've ever tried and struggled losing weight before, your problem probably isn't in your ability to follow through with that plan, although you might think it is. It's actually the plan doesn't fit your requirements. So your neighbor down the road may have been able to lose weight on Weight Watchers or keto, but you can't. And that's not because you are broken, that you're a unicorn, that you're different, but because the model itself is actually broken. And I'm going to share with you the 4-part framework that actually works for long-term weight loss and optimal health transformation for women. Now, if you work with me in my program, you will notice that everything we do sits inside these 4 key pillars. And I will explain why each pillar or each phase is imperative for you being able to succeed in the long term, for you to have a body that not only functions well, but gives back to you, doesn't bite at you, but also helps you to lose weight as a byproduct of becoming your healthiest self. Now, that also includes your most vibrant self, your happiest self, your self where you are able to build deep and meaningful and true, real relationships, a place where you feel abundant, a place where you feel just pure calm and peace, where you feel satisfied in all areas of your life. So this is a place where you're not obsessing about the scale, but obsessing about your next level up in life, where you can get to, what you can achieve. Because you cannot skip one of these pillars and expect lasting results. That's what typical diet programs sit you on. They keep you stuck to keep you returning, to keep you paying for their product. So let's get into each one of these that makes my health coaching program different to any other diet approach out there, so you can understand what it actually takes and what it looks like to have a successful program underneath your belt. And we will start with probably what I think is the most obvious one. However, the last 3 are the ones that you probably have never heard of or never even realized are a fundamental part of actually getting everything that you want. Okay. So the first one, the first pillar is plant-based nutrition. Now, regardless of if you're already plant-based or not, this is not just about eating more plants. Okay. This pillar is about understanding how to eat in a way that heals your body from the inside out. Before I became a health coach, I had no clue that food had anything to do with the body. I just saw that I ate food and I saw my health conditions, my energy, me needing a nap for 3 hours a day every single day. I saw my output, my health conditions, as a given, something that I was given from birth, or maybe even because I got a terrible night's sleep the night before. I had no idea that what we eat is a direct translation to how we feel. I just didn't know. I didn't know that it's what I was eating was creating inflammation, was creating an energy leak, right? I had no idea. But everything that you put in your body is either going to support it or slowly destroy it. Now, calories are not equal. We've all heard of calories. Most of us have anyway. And we're taught to lose weight that we need to cut back on calories. However, some calories are going to come loaded with fiber and vitamins and water and minerals. And some calories are going to come with an inflammatory effect. They are going to deplete your energy and just not make you feel as good. They might back you up a few days, right? So calories are still a measurement of energy, but how they impact you is going to influence what you put out, how you feel, right? How you want to eat, how you want to live your life. So this is why calorie restriction alone isn't really a sustainable method, and it's also not going to help you in terms of a health approach, right? The reason why we want a health approach is because you can lose weight in a way that feels restrictive and you will feel like absolute garbage getting down there. Trust me, I have tried just restricting calories but that was way before I even realized that the calories are different. When you pair calories in, or when you eat calories from something that is more nutritious, it is going to help you last longer between meals. It's going to help you have more energy while you are in a calorie deficit to lose weight. So you can lose weight in a really comfortable way that feels okay, that feels good, or you can lose weight in a way that just feels awful, that can feel deprivational, that can feel restrictive, you can be starving your ass all the way down 5, 10, 15 pounds, or you can do it in a way that actually feels good. That's the way that I do it. That's the way that my clients do it, right? So calorie restriction alone isn't necessarily a sustainable method because it's not something that you can sit in for a long period of time. And if you're someone who has a lot more weight that they want to lose, you're going to want to be in a weight loss phase for a longer period of your life. And it's a matter of whether you want to be in a miserable place or in a supportive and happy place. So we want to use some form of level of nutritional information, some form of framework that is going to be the difference between eating a huge plate of food and feeling satisfied and losing weight versus eating what looks like a healthy meal but still being hungry, right? An hour later, reaching for something that you didn't plan to reach for, maybe having cravings all day long. So when you are taking all of the right nutrients you need, your body is able to function optimally. When you function well and optimally, you can focus on weight loss, right? Your body is firing on all cylinders. Your hormones are supported, meaning that they actually work properly. Your appetite is far more regulated, meaning that you're not going to get ridiculous cravings all the way through the day. And most of us, we live in a convenience-focused lifestyle, but convenience saves time now. But you're paying off that convenience. Convenience isn't free. You pay it off later in medical bills, missed years of your life, wasting time in hospitals and doctor's office. You pay it back financially with sky-high pharmaceutical bills, with doctor's visits, right? With loss of time. Because you are not prioritized on your health, therefore you are paying it back later, right? So when you have a focus on whole foods, especially what we do is a low-fat, whole food, plant-based approach, not no-fat, low-fat, whole food, plant-based approach, because it is one of the most extensively evidenced dietary patterns on the planet for both preventing and reversing lifestyle-related illness and chronic disease. And that includes things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, obesity, some cancers, right? The whole food plant-based diet has been shown time and time again to be one of the optimal, most healthiest diets on the planet. Many women I've worked with have been able to reverse these things: hypertension, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, and so much more, along with shaking off the excess weight, because they are eating in abundance. My clients don't go hungry, and neither do I. We eat an abundance of foods because we do it in a way that nourishes our body. We don't create deficiencies like a lot of other dietary approaches. They're very restrictive, right? With many rules that just don't make sense and are not for optimal health and longevity. They are based on arbitrary rules. They require you to consume a bunch of supplements, which, by the way, actually come from plants anyway, or they will create severe and worrying deficiencies, right, in the name of selling a program that's just different. They'll blame things like menopause, blame your PCOS, your hormones, your thyroid, your age, your lack of a GLP-1 production. Like, when has that ever actually been a problem? They'll blame your obesity gene, right? Watching TV last night and an advert came up and was talking about weight loss injections, blaming your obesity gene. No, if you have the obesity gene, it simply means that you only need an extra 100 calories more than anyone else. That's it, right? That's it. I think it was not 100. It was like 3. I think it was an extra 10 a day. Something crazy like that. So they will make you believe that there is an intrinsically something wrong with you that means that you struggle to lose weight, that you can't lose weight, so that they can sell you a protocol, right? That is not the approach that we take. because I'm going to teach you the 4 fundamental pillars. The first one of those is the fact that we are feeding our bodies with things that create more inflammation, that create more cravings, that create fatigue. We are funneling in crap and garbage that isn't natural. It's man-made in factories. There is nothing natural about drinking Mountain Dew. There is nothing natural about eating brownies and cookies, right? We are fueling sickness and health and ill health and disease. So when you use a whole food plant approach, you are eliminating all of that, not by restriction, but by bringing the more in, the more you crowd in, the more you crowd out, right? By abundance. Now, these programs, they're not going to teach you how to eat for your body's needs when they can sell you bars and meals and supplements all day long, right? They're not going to teach you how to eat in a timely manner or in a way that suits your body's needs, because they need you to hold on to their systems, their apps, right? My clients do not, and I don't track any calories or macros. We don't use intuitive eating because my body would intuitively say that I could eat chocolate all day long. We don't use intuitive eating. We use layers of frameworks, right? But when you use plant-based approach, you also need to start learning about how to eat for your body's requirements in a way that listens to your body, not a third-party app, because you're not always going to have the app. You're not always going to have the ability to count calories available to you. And when you count calories, every single day you will burn and use a different amount of calories, right? If you think about it, this is how I describe it to my clients. If you look at your Fitbit every single day, there are not going to be 2 days in a row that you take the same amount of steps, right? Very, very rare that you will take the exact same number of steps. Now, 1 step is about 0.004 of a calorie. Now, if we just use that as logic, as a principle, every single day, your output of calories is going to be different. So if you are sticking to a certain number because you're counting calories or counting macros, every single day you are ignoring your own body's hunger and fullness cues to listen to the maths. Now, does it work temporarily? For some people it does. There is a huge level of leniency. There's probably a more scientific word for this. There is a huge gap where so many things can go wrong. Trackers can go wrong. Fitness trackers on how many calories that you've tracked. PTs will tell you not to even take off the amount of calories that you've burnt that day, right? So it is so wildly inaccurate, and there are so many variables and places for calorie counting to actually go wrong. They are not teaching you to listen to your body's requirements in a way that is conducive of weight loss, weight maintenance, or weight gain, wherever you are in your health journey, right? So the more you outsource your wisdom, outsource your intelligence with apps and trackers, the less you are in touch with your own internal self. Meaning, are you actually going to be able to manage your weight without these things around? These other diet programs, these other diet approaches aren't going to help you learn how to do it naturally. And we are all born with, I would say 99.9% of us are born with the ability to know how much to eat, to stop when we've had enough. And if you're like, no, Bianca, I actually have no idea when to stop, that is because you are already ignoring pillar 1. You are probably not eating a whole food plant-based lifestyle. There is only very, very few people that I have ever spoken to, and I've spoken to thousands and thousands of women, not millions of women, but thousands of women who are eating a whole food plant-based diet religiously day in, day out, and still struggling. And the reason why they're still struggling is because they haven't included the next 3 pillars, okay? So pillar number 2, this is thought work, mindset, and emotions. I'm going to chunk it into this one, okay? Now, this one is genuinely where most diet programs completely fall apart. Because fuck your thoughts, fuck your emotions, just stick to the plan, right? They treat food as the only problem. Yeah, if you eat junk food, it is a problem. But for a lot of women I speak with, they're already eating relatively healthy, some of them, right? And they should be getting better results. But they haven't been taught how to speak to themselves when things go wrong. how to shift a bad mood so one negative experience in the morning doesn't spiral into a catastrophic full day of fuck it eating, right? How to handle emotions in a safe and productive way rather than stuffing them down with cookies and chips. Because you can have the best diet plan. You can have the best intentions. You can have your calories set up to a freaking T. But if you have used food to soothe before, and it is a tool that you use today, and by the way, most human beings, apart from those who are neglected, are taught to soothe their emotions, and actually quite a lot of times some of those who are neglected as babies are taught to soothe our emotions with food from babies, right? As soon as we come out the womb, we are sucking on a titty, right? It is soothing with food immediately. So it is very, very common pattern for us to see this this mechanism survive all the way into adulthood. But the problem is, in adulthood, now it becomes a problem because you combine that with the ultra-processed foods, the lifestyle, right? The pub lifestyle, the social lifestyle that we have in this era, the convenience of being able to get Uber Eats or a packet of biscuits within minutes, right? You pair that with your innate wisdom to soothe using food, it is now a problem. So if this is a pattern that you see, you will always revert back to food, no matter what meal plan you're on, no matter what diet program you do. If you don't learn how to think on purpose and manage your emotions properly and safely and effectively, right? And here's what I see every single week. A woman will have a great Monday. Tuesday, great. Wednesday, maybe she gets a little bit of a shirty email from her boss. Her teenager said something that really grinds her gears at dinner. Now at 9 o'clock, she's standing in the kitchen counter. Everyone's gone to bed. And now she's stuffing her face, right? This is a very common occurrence. It's not because you're hungry at 9 p.m. You've already had dinner. You might have even had dessert. But your brain needs something. It needs to do something with that emotion. And if food is the fastest, convenient, and most socially acceptable way, even though you might be doing it in secret, if that is the only option available that you know or that you've always used, it will always be your coping mechanism, right? And you've heard me, I know this is such a cliche saying that goes around. This is not a willpower problem, contrary to what most women believe. They think, oh, I just don't have any willpower. I just don't have any discipline. No. It is not that. It is not your plan. The fact that you do good all day and then fuck it all up in the evening, that is not your fault. That is an inability or a lack of skills to handle your emotions or your thought patterns, whether it's emotions like stress, boredom, frustration, anxiety, fear, right? Maybe they've been running on loop for years or even just days. And then there's the thought patterns that you have, how you speak to yourself, the thoughts that are running loose in your head, right? Your thoughts create your emotions. So even before the emotions arise, you'll have a thought about something. Maybe it's someone, a circumstance that happened. Maybe it's a thought about yourself. Your thoughts indirectly create your actions. So if you are blaming and shaming and judging yourself, if you criticize yourself constantly, if you berate yourself, if you don't celebrate your own wins, if you don't acknowledge yourself for all of the work that you do for the family around you, if you tell yourself that what you do is not enough, it's never enough, you're not worthy enough, most of this is not intentional, these thoughts, right? It's learned. But if that's the thoughts that are running loose in your head, you will feel like absolute shit. You are creating an internal environment that is creating you to need an escape. And again, if your escapism is with food or with alcohol or with drugs, doesn't matter. If that is your form of escape, that is how you will escape every single time until you rewire that neural pathway. Okay? If I lined up 1,000 people to tell you you're a terrible person, you're a bad mum, you're a terrible employee, you're an awful daughter, you're an awful friend, that you're fat, that you're ugly, that you've got ugly thighs, that you've got spotty skin, that you're not worthy, how would you feel? You'd feel pretty freaking Terrible, right? But that's what you do every single day. We have more than 1,000 thoughts. Guarantee you have more than 1,000 shitty thoughts ruminating around your head. And most of them are recycled from yesterday. And most of them are going to be negative. The majority of our thoughts are negative. Okay? So if your internal environment is like a line of 1,000 people shouting abuse to you, how else are you supposed to react? How else are you supposed to react when nobody else appreciates you or acknowledges you or compliments you, when you are giving yourself 1,000 negative thoughts every single day? Right? I've only ever seen intentional emotional work and thought work in 1 or 2 weight loss programs. And I do a lot of research. And that's why I had to make it a key pillar inside mine, because women are just not taught how to think on purpose. And look, especially men, are not taught how to deal with their emotions, right? We women are not taught how to think on purpose, how to think with love, with care, and with precision, and with caution. We are not taught how to create positive action with our mind, only taught how other people are doing it, right? And if you grew up with a mum who analyzed her body, picked it apart, told you that she was always on a diet, or that she couldn't have cereal, she couldn't have that because she would get fat, or maybe she's a mum that told you that her dad didn't love her, or that she wasn't going to get the attention, right? That she wasn't attractive. If you grew up with a mum who struggled with her own self-perception, with her own self-worth, with her own dramas and struggles and trauma, and you heard that, you have now taken that on board as your new normal, right? So this is even just one example of how we will grow up to be conditioned to a specific level of thinking. Her emotional responses will become your emotional responses. Her opinions on life will become your opinions on life. And it's not just your mum, it's everyone else around you. So if you had an older sibling, a grandma, maybe quite a lot of us, we will have older generations telling us, oh, you're a bit chubby, or you need to lose weight, oh, you should probably do something with your hair, you should probably do this. All of these comments, this is conditioning, right? So now you're an adult, how are you going to escape the conditioning, the thought work, the emotions, with a new diet plan, with just some habits that you're supposed to pick up? Because that's not going to change it long term. You're always going to revert back, especially if you don't change that internal environment. Thought work is also about understanding what you're telling yourself before, during, and after eating, right? It's about understanding the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, right? So it's not just about the stories that you tell yourself, it's also about how you process your thoughts, what comes up, what you override those thoughts with. Learning how to process an uncomfortable feeling without food being the answer. That's huge, right? One of my clients, Gail, she described her transformation as feeling like she has more control of the devil in her head after losing 15 pounds in 6 months. But she managed to transform the way that she spoke to herself on the daily, because beforehand, that devil was just going unexamined. That devil was taking over. It was talking about food constantly. It was telling her all of the negative stuff about herself. So what did she want to do? She wanted to go and escape, because poor her. She was on a diet. Poor her. She couldn't get to have all these things. Her thoughts were creating a terrible environment for her to live, and it wasn't conducive of weight loss. It wasn't conducive of her success, right? But our thoughts, they're trainable, because your brain will adapt. Our brain has the ability to adapt. It's called neuroplasticity. The beauty of our brains is that we can change it, right? And research shows that emotional eating is actually one of the top predictors of diet failure. Not because you actually lack that knowledge about what to eat, because most of us kind of know that we should probably be eating more vegetables. It's not from that. It's not from a lack of motivation. It's actually from your emotions. So if nobody is working with you on this in a diet program, in a weight loss program, in a way for you to optimize your own personal health, that is kind of like a slow puncture in your tire, right? And that will slowly wear thin. Pillar number 3, and these are only going to get juicier. Pillar number 3 is nervous system and your body, right? Now, when I say body, exercise helps with longevity and health, but I do not talk about exercise. I do not prescribe exercise to my clients, and I don't do it for myself from a weight loss perspective, because you don't need that. I have one client, Becky, who has lost over 50 pounds, and she has not left her chair for many medical reasons. Okay. Yes, she has left her chair a little bit, but she hasn't changed she hasn't had an exercise plan. She hasn't created one, right? But this just goes to show you how habits, mindset, all of these things that I'm talking about is going to impact your weight more than exercise will. However, exercise will help. Exercise is imperative. As women, we have to exercise, and strength training is probably one of the most underrated things for longevity, bone health, muscle health, hormonal health. Strength training is absolutely imperative. But when I say body, I'm not telling you to go and do some militant exercising. I'm more talking about your body as its physical presence. And that, including that, we're going to be talking about the nervous system, right? And my goodness, this surprises people the most, because you can be doing everything right on paper. You can be eating whole foods, you can be exercising religiously, you can be staying hydrated, and yet you're still not losing weight. And one of the most common reasons I see is because you're releasing cortisol. But it's not cortisol that is the problem. People will sell you that as a problem. People are going to sell you that cortisol is your problem. I saw it today. I opened up Instagram. Cortisol's your problem. Next thing I saw on Instagram today. Insulin's your problem. These are not the fucking problem. They are the symptom of the problem. Diet programs and Instagram influencers will tell you that cortisol is why you can't lose weight. But this, again, is why, cortisol is why you can't lose weight. Insulin is why you can't lose weight. Menopause is the problem. Age is the problem. None of these things are the problem. They are the symptoms of the problem, of an underlying issue. So when your nervous system is chronically activated, when you are in a stress mode and you might not even know it, okay, it might just be having a lot of responsibilities, being a mum in 2026. Being an employer or an employee in 2026. It could just be living in this life that we live. There's so much stresses and responsibilities, and we have so much access to so much information that is in itself a stressor. When you are in stress mode, and most of us are for most of the time, we're probably not going to be sleeping well enough. We're not running on empty. We are running on empty. We're probably people pleasing. We're never resting. We're not fueling our body appropriately, pillar 1. You release cortisol, and cortisol does make you hold on to fat, more specifically around the abdomen, but your body thinks it's in danger. And when your body is in danger, or when it perceives danger or threat, your body is more concerned about your literal survival over trying to lose a few pounds for your brother's wedding in June. Okay? There was a 2018 study on in the journal of in the obesity study journals somewhere, found that chronic stress and elevated cortisol was directly linked to an increase in the abdomen fat, right? So we know that when we are highly stressed, we increase the fat. But we also know that no matter what, you can starve yourself skinny. There's nobody ever in a war-torn, deprived country gaining weight because they are being starved or stressed. We know it's not a cortisol problem. It's how you cope with being in active survival mode all of the freaking time. That's why it's the problem. Cortisol isn't the problem, right? People who are in these war-torn countries, they are in starvation mode. They are losing weight. You see this on the TV, on social media, on news. You see these on the charity adverts, right? People are literally starving to death. So we know that it's not your freaking metabolism. We know that it's not your hormones. It is the way that you react to life. And this is the thing with menopause, is when women go through menopause, so much change is happening. Yes, your hormones are going to be fluctuating. Yes, it's going to be a terrible time. It might be, not going to be. Yes, it might be a terrible time. You've got a lot of responsibility shifting. There's a huge shift in your own mental perception. You have to go from one chapter to the other. It is a huge emotional change. There's going to be a lot of physical changes as well. And that is going to have a massive influence on the way that you tackle life. It is a huge emotional change. And so you can either tackle that with doubling down on exercise and doubling down on your nutrition, or you can sit there in woe is me and eat more or not dial into your nutrition. And that is what happens. And I know this not because I have experienced menopause myself. I have not. But I know this because I have coached many of women in each stage of menopause. And not one of them has turned around after working with me and blamed their menopause. They blamed the way they reacted to it. It is not these problems. Cortisol, insulin, hormones. It is not the problem. It is the way that you are reacting to it. And while your body, your nervous system is running in overdrive, right? Your body is not listening to you, and it will make grabbing convenience foods, overeating, even just slightly at each meal. You know, I did the maths with my clients, and if you, let's say like every single bite is about 20 to 30 calories. If you left 2 bites behind at each meal every single day, you would probably leave behind about 1,200 calories, which for some people is an entire day's worth of calories, right? By just leaving 2 bites behind at every meal. It can be so marginal that you are overeating, but you could be overeating because your sleep is impacted, because you're emotionally eating, because you're buying time at the dinner table, right? It could be very, very tiny things like that. It could be that your nervous system is kicking up cravings, is telling you to eat more fat and more sugary foods, because that helps you wind down. It helps you calm down. It's the only time that you go, for the day, right? This is why in my program, we specifically work on the nervous system regulation, because in a world of convenience foods and packaged foods and stupidly full calendars, giving in to less than optimal lifestyle choices, including dietary choices, essentially becomes the number one survival mechanism. And this is not conducive for optimal health, for your energy, for your cravings, for hormonal health, for fat loss, right? And one of my clients, Bryony, she's a great example of this. She's tried restricting over and over, but in the end, her breakthrough came from learning how to work with her body instead of fighting it every single day. She learned how to regulate her nervous system, how to eat in a way that she didn't feel like she was multitasking, doing 100 things. You may think that you're a machine, but you're not. And your body will slowly deteriorate underneath the hard exterior if you're not being careful of your nervous system, if you're not being careful of your health. Pillar number 4, belief and identity work. This is probably one of the deepest bits of work that we do. And it is the undercurrent of the entire coaching program, because you can have, again, the most perfect nutrition plan. You can understand your emotions. You could even not use food to regulate your nervous system. You can do all the things right. But if deep down you don't believe that you specifically get to be healthy, maybe you believe that you don't deserve to get attention. Maybe getting attention feels unsafe to you. Maybe you're scared of success. Maybe you're scared of failure, right? If this is the case, you will self-sabotage every single time. Now, we call it self-protection, but it's also called self-sabotage. It's the act of intentionally getting in the way of your own goals to keep you as the same person. And it's a self-protection mechanism. Your subconscious drives about 95% of your actions without you even realizing it. And it has a very strong agenda, and that's to not change, no matter how much you want change. Because change is unsafe and unknown. And there are many layers to this, many reasons why your subconscious doesn't want you to reach your goals, no matter how much you actually want weight loss. This is why you'll self-sabotage every single time things start going well, or every time you're on a good streak. And I know it sounds so reasonable in the time. Things like time, a lack of time, family, things come up, money comes up, other commitments, other responsibilities. I didn't have enough food in the cupboard, blah, 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 blah. It all sounds so freaking reasonable, so truthful, such an exact explanation of why this failed this time. But realistically, it's a big fat sign of relief that you don't have to face what feels like a fucking mountain. So you stay in your little comfort zone. You blame other people. You blame laziness or lack of discipline or lack of willpower, that it's not perfect, or maybe that you messed up anyway, so might as well carry on, right? It's not those things. It's actually your identity and belief system. And I did a video last week on this. I've done actually 2 videos in the last 2 weeks on motivation and identity and belief system. And it's deep, right? It's deep stuff. If you can bear with me, it's not your typical weight loss, coach, right? We're talking about deeply held stories about who you are, what you believe that you're capable of, what you're worthy of. These come from your family. These come from your conditioning and your programming, right? They might be dependent on your economic status, on your social status. They might be heavily influenced by that, right? And yes, I know it sounds deep, but holding my clients through this transformation is probably one of the biggest, most moving parts of my coaching practice. This is truly something that you don't get with if you just jumped on an influencer's lose 10 pounds in 5 week plan, or a juice cleanse, or an insulin resistance course, or a menopause meal plan, right? So Kerry, one of my clients, interviewed her on my YouTube channel. She was already plant-based, but struggled with the scale for years after dieting had created a trauma for her. So while we worked on fine-tuning her nutrition, not much was actually needed to be shifted there, but her nervous system was completely wrecked, and her identity was still stuck in the version of herself that believed that she would keep piling the weight on, that she couldn't trust herself, that the scale would determine her mood, that other people around her hated her, judged her, shamed her, blamed her for her choices. So she described herself as she was totally wired for survival. She was always feeling reactive. And after 6 months of working together, she was able to get back on the scale after decades of not being able to get on it without spiraling into full-blown panic. And she is able to talk to herself now with love, with peace, with support, and with compassion. She's able to trust in her food choices, and she says that she is now in full control of her thoughts and feelings. Another generic diet plan wasn't going to fix her relationship with the scale in her body, right? But more of a plan that integrated all of these 4 pillars of health and habit change was the thing that was going to work. This is the pillar that programs will never touch on, because trust me, it is hard to sell deep transformative change. People want the results, but they don't want to be uncomfortable getting them. Let that land for a minute. People are taking weight loss injections left, right, and fucking center. People will subscribe to shakes and pills and supplements, right? I got a message today saying, oh, it's really hard to navigate all the fitness supplements. Yes, that's because you're focusing on supplements rather than changing your lifestyle and dietary choices, right? It's very difficult for some people to recognize that they actually have to shift their wiring, their programming, their conditioning, their belief system in order to get the long-term results, because we are so fixated on getting results immediately. We are so conditioned in this day and age to get results yesterday that we want them yesterday. But actually to get the results and keep them long-term takes a bit of work, right? But that's what's actually going to make this shit stick. So they are the 4 main pillars. There's so much more in between this. Things like environment, your support system, habit change, lifestyle choices, the skills that you need to build, right? But these are the core 4. And I have a question for you to go away and have a think about right now. I want you to imagine that I waved a magic wand right now and you got the body of your dreams. would you know how to keep it or how to maintain it? Would you know? When you answer this question, it will put everything into perspective. Exactly why quick fixes and meal plans and injections will never actually work long term, because you don't learn how to act, behave, cope, think, eat in a way that supports this version of you, that supports these energy levels, that supports these hormones, that supports these bodily functions. You don't know how to eat in a way that makes you poop 3 times a day on the regular and nice, perfect stools. You haven't learned how to play the game, so your winnings get taken away from you the very moment you have to return back to reality. And that's the moment the pills, the plan, the injections stop. You cannot shortcut your way to optimal health. You might have heard of a guy called Brian Johnson. He's an entrepreneur who is essentially on a mission to not die or not age. It's his entire life, right? He's had Netflix documentaries and so on and so forth. He is hacking his way to a younger body. He is basically hooked up to to machines and testing his blood work, testing his hormones every single freaking day, because it is his life's mission to find the cheat code. He has tried more things, more experiments than any amount of diets that you ever tried. Yet he still predominantly eats whole plant foods, consumes all of his micro and macronutrients, exercises regularly, minimizes stress, prioritizes sleep, right? He is working on his nervous system, his thoughts, his identity. He is working on nutrition. He is working on all of those pillars. The world's leading guinea pig hasn't found a miracle cure. So stop trying to find it in another diet program and focus on getting longevity from your health, not trying to hack your way there. Now, if you're still listening to me right now, it means that you know this is exactly what you've been missing. One of these pillars, or all 4, are missing. Other plant-based weight loss programs do not integrate the neurological shifts, the thought work, the identity work, the belief systems that needs to happen in order to get the results and keep them forever. Because it's not a matter of just sticking to the habits, it's a matter of learning what keeps pulling you off track. You know how to be healthy. You're not stupid. Everyone knows they need to eat more and probably move a little bit more, and that'll help. But you don't know why you keep falling off, why you can't follow through, why it's difficult for you. If that's exactly how you're feeling, why is it difficult for me? I must be broken. Why can't I do it? Then somewhere, one of these 4 pillars at the very least is going to be your kryptonite. So if you realize that there are missing pieces in your weight loss puzzle, let's have a chat, just you and me. Not with a team, with me. All you got to do is book a 10-minute triage call. We will quickly figure out if I think I can help you, and then we can book a free consultation call. This will just help me weed out the women who aren't actually ready for coaching, who aren't coachable, or that I can't even help. And it will help me allocate my diary to those who are actually stuck in one of these 4 pillars. So I have a small number of spots available, so comment triage or use the link in the description around this video. I must press that this is not a sales call, it's an if call. If you think I can help you, if I think you're a good fit for me, then we can have a more in-depth chat. Then we can discuss your next steps. Either that's with me, with someone else. And even if we decide that it's not the right time, you will leave with a clear picture of why things haven't worked so far. The link is in the comments. I hope this video has helped. Please drop me a comment and let me know if you have noticed a clear gap in one of these pillars for you, where you struggle the most, and which one of these things you think is really just holding you back. I'd love to know. Take care, and I'll see you next week.